here. So the CAD format, I don't know what I chose. I can't remember now. It must have been an STP. So that's a step file. So I opened, yeah, it's an STP file. So I selected that one. Now, if I just click open, now this item here is everything's already in the right place. So the nice thing is with this one, we can use the as built joint. So if we use an as built joint, if we select that red knobby thing there, and we select that there, and then we click OK, those two are now joined together. So when I move that, they move together. Now, again, we've got up here, we can capture the position. That wouldn't be a good idea on this occasion. So we're going to revert the position. So what we can now do is do another assemble as built joint. So if we select this one and this one, we don't want it rigid now, we want a revolute. And all it's going to ask you for is what is the axis that you want this to revolute on. So if we do that there, you will notice that it revolutes around that point. Now, don't be concerned that it left that red knobby thing behind, because as long as I select OK, if I now drag that part, it will move together because that has a rigid joint with that, and that has a revolute around that point. Now, I could carry on and I could keep making joints, but I'm conscious about the time. And I just want to show one more thing. Well, two more things, really. Let's revert position. This here, what you're going to notice is it's just loads of bits. Because if we look here, you'll notice that the component, these are just components, and this is a component containing subcomponents. So if we select all them, you can see this component is actually made up of lots of other components. Now, if we go back to revert position, while that's selected, in the assemble joints, you have a thing called rigid group, which if I select that and then click OK, now when I drag this, it drags as one part. I haven't had to rigid joint all the individual pieces. This is just is one piece. Now, if I now wanted to do a joint on this, so let's do a joint. It can't be an as-built joint. Let's say I accidentally clicked capture position, okay? I can't no longer do an as-built joint because that part has been moved off the other assembly. So I've now got to do a joint. Now, if I select, really I want kind of there, and then I want to link that to there, but I haven't actually got a point to clip it to. This is a really weird shape that there's nowhere to actually click it to. So what you have to do in this circumstance, you find out what that part is. So that part is the bottom clamp. We activate that part. This is very important. If you want to create a origin point, because in assemble here, we have joint origin. It says positions a joint origin on a component. Now, if you don't have that component activated, this will not work. So make sure it's activated. What we're going to have to do is a couple of steps more. We're going to have to create a sketch. I'm going to create a sketch on that face. We're going to use the good old project, which is create project. And we're going to project the outline shape of that crazy part. If you want, we can include that part as well. It doesn't really make any difference. We don't actually need it. And then click OK. That's given us a load of like points and lines and everything that we need. So if I create a line, now I don't want an actual line, I want a construction line. If I go from that point there and I bring that line down, I haven't got a center point here, but I have got this at 90 degrees. So I know that's right down the middle of that line. So if I do that and then click OK, if I create a circle, and if you remember if I click C, that will create a center circle. So if I go on this line and create a center circle and then hit return, I can then use a constraint. Now you're starting to think, now I know why I had to learn all these buttons now. So we can use a tangent constraint on that to that line there. Why that didn't work, I don't know, but there you go. So what that's done is that's created a circle that is touching on the inside of those edges. Now what I can now do is if I do another tangent constraint from there, let's say to that line there, what that's done for me is it's technically created me a point that would be central between all the parts that the central rod would touch. So let me just finish that sketch. Now, what I know this is getting a bit complicated, but it's worth doing. While this component's activated, on the assemble, if I do now joint origin, I can actually select the center of that circle. And if I select that one and then click OK, I can now technically hide that sketch and I just now have an origin point on that component. So if I now go back and activate the main assembly, I can now do a joint. And if I now go to there, and then I zoom in and I click the other one onto there, and if I change that motion from a rigid to a slider, you'll notice it's going in the wrong direction, but I can change the slide axis maybe to the Y. Yep, so that's that one there. I think I want to do the motion limits. So let's say, let's start at 10 million and let's say the maximum of, let's say 60 mil. That looks about okay. And then let's click OK. So what I've now done is I've positioned that on there that if I lift that up, that will go with it. And obviously if I created a revolute joint on there, that would have lifted up and rotated around and blah, 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 blah.